So, can you introduce yourself, your name and age and what you do, please?
Sure, my name's Chris Shaw. Birth name's Christopher, as my mum calls me when I've done something wrong. I'm 47 in January 2020. Was there anything else on the question?
And what do you do?
What do I do? That's actually the hardest thing to answer. So from a career perspective, I'm in IT, but probably for the last 20 years doing mostly management of IT teams doing software development.
Mm-hmm. I've been writing about my experience with autism and special conditions. Could you please tell me about your experiences personally and in your family?
Sure. I wouldn't say that I had paid that much attention to autism when I was growing up. Being the age that I am, some of the flavours, as I call them, of autism weren't necessarily recognised when I was younger, like Asperger's. My first encounter with somebody with autism was when I was at school. I remember at a bus stop meeting a kid from the local grammar school who was really probably getting bullied by some of his classmates at the bus stop, and they kept on firing numbers at him because he was able to calculate the square root instantly of any number. And it fascinated me in terms of it clearly has got some form of talent associated to it, which is why I've actually come to understand and appreciate. But after that, I think it wasn't probably until my son started demonstrating symptoms in his sort of toddler years, which would have been sort of 15 years ago, that I started to learn more about it.
What characteristics do you see in yourself and others that made more sense after you had a diagnosis given?
I've always been told that I'm extremely fussy and picky, and it's something that's been the case to me. I like things in a certain way. It has to be done in a certain way. It has to be done right. I have to do the right thing.
I get that too.
I feel guilty or embarrassed if I'm doing the wrong thing, or if somebody tries to get me to do the wrong thing. And the other thing that I've really begun to see over the last few years since my diagnosis was how I look at everything in terms of patterns. In its most basic form, that can just be symmetry. So I like to see a balance between things. One of my earliest memories about features that may have signalled some autism was around obsession with car number plates. I've had this for as long as I can remember.
I actually had that at one point. It was actually about car makes.
Oh right, yeah, and I've got probably makes and models and features, and I'm probably looking at every number plate I go by, and I'm aging it. I'm working out, where it's come from, if I can recognise a certain pattern of letters, and then I'm looking at if it's the front of a car. I can try and work out via the indicator, even the colours of the lenses, what particular age or flavour of the car it is.
Yeah, because I used to love finding Volvos.
Yes.
I can't believe I did that. It's actually backfired actually.
Yes.
Because that's what got me back into it. Me and my mates were doing it, and we would collect it on a Monday, and we would go out and we would collect and see. I think at the end I had like 450 different cars. I don't know if it was different cars, same cars and all that. What was it like when you received your diagnosis?
It was a strange thing initially. I think I started identifying many of my traits as being potentially autistic when my son was diagnosed. When he was diagnosed, they listed off a number of reasons why he would be deemed as high-functioning autism in his case. And whilst the therapist was reading off all the different reasons, my wife and I looked at each other because every single one of them also represented me. And And at that time, and that, as I say, was probably 15, 14 years ago, at the time, I thought, well, it's possible, but I'm probably too old to be diagnosed, because autism is more easily diagnosed during early development for children, because many of the behaviours are more evident at that point. By adulthood, you tend to have developed certain coping mechanisms in certain situations that can be very stressful, but nevertheless that can mask some of the behaviours. But so I didn't think much more of it at the time, but I used it as Jamie, my son, was growing up. I used it as hopefully positive role modelling for him, to say, I'm autistic too. So whilst you're having challenges in this space, it's possible to still do a good job at what you're doing and still be successful at that, and that's okay. But as time went past, I felt a real need to find out whether I was or I wasn't, and I ended up almost pleading with my GP to refer me for a diagnosis, and I was referred to a place in Swindon that does adult autism diagnoses as part of the NHS, and they did the process with me. I had a 4-hour interview,
Wow.
9 different tests
Wow.
I had to do.
God, I didn't have to do that.
Well, in some ways they were fun. Not so much maybe the interviewing and the questioning, because it goes deep into certain things that are not always comfortable. But some of the tests were fascinating. Anyway, after that interview, it took about 2 months before I got the final diagnosis. And in that period, I began to think, well, if I was, they would have told me by now. Maybe it's taken 2 months because it's not that important to tell me that actually I'm not. And so I turned up to the result session assuming that I'd be told I wasn't. And the lady turned around and said, she went straight to it. She said, I'm going to jump straight to it. I can't remember the exact words, but it was somewhere along the lines that you're presenting Asperger's as your diagnosis. And I said, oh, I'm surprised. I thought you were going to turn around and say no. And she goes, oh no, you definitely are.
See, that reminds me of my experience, because obviously I got referred after some things happened at school, and I removed myself. My mum removed me from school, and I had a tutor, and she referred me to the NHS in the hospital, and had a few interviews with a male doctor. I think he went away or something. I don't know what exactly happened, but I had a female one for my next one, and within, I think it was like 10 minutes, she said, yeah, she's got it. And it was like, I think Mum sighed a nice relief. And as you were saying that, I had a thought. Do you think that there's a genetic part of autism, Asperger's and all that?
I feel yes. When I've asked the question of professionals, it's an unproven thing, and they only have their opinions as well. They can't, because it's the brain, and the brain is the least understood thing in the human body. They can't say for definite, but my feeling is yes.
Yeah, so do I. I just felt that way, right? Next one. Can you tell me a bit about what you do for work and how your condition has affected you, good or bad?
So, I've always, again, being the age that I am, computers weren't that prevalent in life. I was at primary school during the late 70s, and then into the early 80s, eventually into secondary school and so forth. And so what would tend to be the case was that if a school had a computer, there'd be one for the entire school, and it would be trolleyed around with its screen. Certainly the case at primary school, but as soon as I got an interaction with that computer, it just fascinated me. And that had been almost the passion that had continued throughout my schooling and the rest of my life in essence. But I think growing up and going to school during the 80s in particular, as computers were becoming more common, and there was a real growth and explosion almost of computer-based products and activities, then it just stimulated the mind to think about lots of different things that I could get involved in relating to computers. So as it came into doing GCSEs and then A-levels, I was gearing things around computers, but also I liked a very crisp, organised design approach. So I ended up doing engineering drawing as an A-level as well. And at that point I wanted to do computer graphic design, but it didn't really exist as a thing at the time. So I ended up just focusing on those as A-levels, got my A-levels, and then decided to go to university just to do a generic computing course. And I was just going to see how
far it went.
Absolutely. And that's really what happened in terms of my career to a certain extent. I mean, there's lots more stories there because it's been 25 years of working pretty much in IT. But when I finished, or when I was at university, I got an interview to work for Intel in Old Town. And at the time, and this was 1992, at the time, Intel were in Swindon, and so were Motorola.
Oh wow, really?
And Motorola, not the building that's over in North Swindon, they had a building near the Junction 16 of the M4. And Motorola were the manufacturer of the chip that was in the Commodore Amiga at the time. And I was a big Commodore Amiga fan, so I actually wanted to work for Motorola. But I got a job at Intel, which is almost like their main competitor. And it was a job in sales.